Hello there. Hi, good afternoon. My name's Andrew Anderson, and I'm here to talk to you for the next 45 minutes or so about the magic of cats, which is the title of my forthcoming book. Now, I normally begin all of my presentations with a bit of an apology because I used to live opposite Shakespeare's house. And so I used to begin by apologizing by saying, if there's a disruption during the middle of the presentation, I'm very sorry, but there's a lot of tourists around or there's buskers, or so please forgive any disruption. But I've moved. And I've been very, very smug about the fact that I won't actually have to give an apology at the start of my talk today until about an hour ago when I realised that we've arranged for a Tesco's food order to arrive between 5 and 6. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to go off and deal with the food order. That's being dealt with by someone else. But there could be a doorbell ring. We'll see. Let's see how that goes, shall we? So I do want to apologise in case there's any disruption in the middle. But let's hope that we have a nice, peaceful 45 minutes talking about cats. So I'll just begin by telling you a little bit about my previous books. Magic of Cats will be my third book with Moon Books. The first one is this one, and it's The Ritual of Writing. This one came out in 2019. Kind of does what it says on the title. It's there to help you write seasonally around the wheel of the year and help to embed writing in your spiritual practice. So that was my first book. I used to be a creative writing and English teacher, so that's where that one came from. You'll see bits of English teacher today because we're going to do some poetry, but don't be scared, it's great poetry. My second book was this one, which is Artio and Artuis, also known as the Bear Book. People call it the Bear Book. And this is very different. I went on a spiritual and physical pilgrimage to discover what I could about two Celtic bear gods. So I was very lucky to go to Switzerland to go and see the statue of Artio. But there's, I basically tried to reconstruct what Artio and Artuis were like. And so we come to my third book, which is coming out on the 28th of April. And it's what today's about, and it's called The Magic of Cats. And as you can see, it's got a very lovely front cover, and that's what we're going to be spending most of today talking about. Just a little hint there about what's coming up. So yes, that comes out on the 28th of April, and it's part of a series. You may well have gathered this, considering that Steve before me was talking about the magic of moths and butterflies. There's a bit of a series. Steve was first with his moths and butterflies, and now you've got me with my cats next. So I'm hoping that we're not going to be making we're not going to make cats like Steve did, and I'm not going to sing it like Steve did. But I will be reading some bits from the magic of cats as we go through. So when I was asked if I would write The Magic of Cats, I was thrilled. I'm very much a cat person. Didn't used to be a dog person, and then got two cats, one called Marlowe and one called Alfie. You'll be meeting them shortly. And I'm very, very much a cat person now. And I was thrilled to be asked to write this book. And then a horrible realization dawned on me, which is I've got to find a unique selling point for this book. I've got to do something different to all other books on cats, and there's a lot of books on cats, particularly cats and magic. So I had to find my way in. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? Should I write like a cat spell book, maybe? Well, there is actually one of those already. There's quite a few where you can use your cats in terms of practical magic. And so that was not really a route I could go down. And so I just let it settle with me for a couple of days. And I remembered a poem that I'd written about 10 years ago. And my housemate said to me, we don't mythologize our cats enough. We don't make them grand as we should do. That, I mean, they feel very much like our children, as most cat owners will tell you. But we don't mythologize them enough. We need to make them bigger somehow. So I spent a long time looking at Alfie, my cat, looking at him going, how do I mythologize you? What do we do? How do we go about this? And over a period of time, and on a particular day when the inspiration struck, I wrote a poem. And it's a cat creation poem. So how cats think the world was made. based on my two cats, Marlowe and Alfie. And it's aimed at children. It's kind of in the style of The Night Before Christmas. So you'll see it's got quite a rhythm to it. It's meant to be magical, meant to be a bit of a bedtime story. It's called The Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day, a story for kittens of all ages. So the idea is it's a story that that mum cats tell their babies, tell their kittens, to help get them off to sleep. So I thought, as I use this poem as the structure for this book, I will begin my talk by reading it out. So it's a bit long, not massively long. It's not going to take 45 minutes, but you know, it's a bit long. So get comfortable, get settled, and yeah, we will start with The Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day, a story for kittens of all ages. Long, long ago, before there was time, before there was music or stories or rhyme, the moon loved the sun so much she gave birth to a small little planet, which we call the Earth. The moon loved the earth with its rivers and seas. The sun loved the earth with its mountains and trees. Each wanted to give their new child a toy to show the earth how she had filled them with joy. Moon spoke to the stars for help with this task. What gift can I give? She started to ask, when out of her skirt, giving her such a fright, rolled a little black cat called the Cat of the Night. The Cat of the Night was a black, black cat, a cat so black he was blacker than black, so black that underneath his coat was every other colour dancing. And Moon so loved the Cat of the Night, she bathed his heart in purest light. The stars drew close to see him blessed with a white, white moon on his black, black chest. The little cat twitched his little black nose as stars lay a kiss on his little black toes. He skipped as they tickled, he jumped left and right when each of his paws turned a bright, brilliant white. So the Cat of the Night with a black, black nose, with the moon on his chest and the stars on his toes, was a gift to the earth as a sign of great love from her silvery mother in the dark skies above. Sun ran to his friends, the clouds, in such fright. "Oh, clouds, have you seen the Cat of the Night? I need a good gift," he started to say, when out of his crown rolled the Cat of the Day. The Cat of the Day was a white, white cat, a cat so white he was whiter than white, so white that underneath his coat was every other colour dancing. And Sun so loved the Cat of the Day, he chased his friends, the clouds, away, then filled the cat's belly with a deep golden heat, which coloured his tail, his body and feet. The clouds gathered round where the golden cat laid, and crisscrossed his back with a deep cooling shade. He lolled and he wriggled, he stretched and he rolled, as his coat became striped with a deepening gold. So the Cat of the Day, with a pink, pink nose, with the dark stripy back and the bright golden toes, was a gift to the earth as a sign of great love from her fiery father in the bright skies above. The earth loved the moon, and the earth loved the sun, and earth loved the cats and would cuddle each one. When the cats saw each other, they wanted to play and started a race that goes on to this day. They race and they chase and they chase and they run, because running and racing and chasing is fun. They chase to the east and they race to the west, because running and racing and chasing is best. Each morning at sunrise, the Cat of the Day rolls over the hills, chasing nighttime away. At sunset, the other one rolls into sight, and darkness belongs to the Cat of the Night. In summer, the daytimes are longer and bright, when the Cat of the Day beats the Cat of the Night. In winter, the Cat of the Night wins the sport, so nighttimes are long and daytimes are short. They chase from the east and they race to the west, because running and racing and chasing is best. They race and they chase and they chase and they run, because running and racing and chasing is fun. Moon follows the night, sun follows the day, as they run and they race and they chase and they play. Each follows the cat they created from love, looking down on the game from the skies up above. Earth still loves the moon, earth still loves the sun, earth still loves the cats and embraces each one. And the chase still goes on, because that's how they play, the Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day. So there we go. I'm just going to have myself a quick drink of water. So I wrote that poem about 12 years ago as a way of mythologizing my cats, Marlowe and Alfie. And so I thought what I would do next is introduce you to Marlowe and Alfie, and some of the inspiration that has flowed from that poem, both in my life and in the book, in terms of the way that the book is illustrated. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of explore some of those connections between cats and night and cats and daytime a little bit more further. So I'm just going to present. I'm going to put a presentation up. I hope this works. Let's see, share screen. There we go. There's going to be an awkward moment when, let me see, there we go. Here we go. So you can probably see me now. Hopefully you can see this handsome chap. This is Marlowe. Marlowe is the inspiration for the Cat of the Night. And he's 17 now, bless him. He's still got a very kitteny little face, but he's quite an old chap now. Marlowe was the first cat that we got, and he's a law unto himself. He has always been a law unto himself. Marlowe demands attention. As you can see, if you look over here, I mean, these pictures look quite cute. This is cute, right? Look at that. No, look at that. That's a demand. That's a demand right there. And this one here, I mean, this I put this picture in the center because it just kind of sums Marlowe up completely, really. He's a very demanding boy. He knows his mind. He's super intelligent. And he kind of thinks about the world around him. He doesn't really like the daytime a lot. You can see he's quite sleepy in the day. Marlowe is definitely a cat of the darkness. He kind of goes out into the garden. As I mentioned earlier, we've moved. And he didn't used to go out a lot. Neither of them went out a lot because of where we lived. But now Marlowe goes out and he loves going out at night and just sitting in that darkness and kind of being the darkness, as it were. But he's a glorious boy, but he kind of keeps himself to himself, a little bit aloof, perhaps. He's my housemate Becky's cat. He does come for a cuddle with me occasionally, but yeah, he's his mummy's boy, really. And he's all of those kind of mystical, magical things that you would expect with a cat. He looks through you, as you can see in that central picture. What he's actually looking into in this picture is a light that's shaped like a pumpkin. You can just see it in his eyes. But Marlowe is that kind of cat who will look through you, who seems to know what you're thinking. You know, you puny human kind of looking straight through you and knowing what you're thinking about. So he is the inspiration for the Cat of the Night, mostly because he's black and white, but also because he's got some qualities which kind of match up with the kind of the stereotype of the cat we have as this magical, knowing creature. And Marlowe was the first cat we got. And then we got a second cat as a rescue, and that's Alfie. Bless him. There he is. Alfie's very, very different to Marlowe. Alfie, although he looks rough, tough and mean, he's a darling of a cat. He's 19 now, Alfie, so he's really chugging on a fair way. But he's a communicator. He talks. I was going to have an open door here today so that Alfie could come in and say hello, because he would. But unfortunately, with Tesco's, I can't leave the door open. But Alfie has different names for us. He's a very clever cat. If somebody new comes into the house, after hiding for about 5 minutes, Alfie walks up to them and introduces himself. He says, "Hello, I'm Alfie. Who are you?" And he will introduce himself to guests. He's quite timid. He's not as confident as Marlowe. And Alfie's a doer. So whereas Marlowe is the thinker, Alfie is the doer. Alfie was the one who worked out how to get into the fridge. And he worked out how to get into a fridge quite a few years ago when I was still eating meat. And he got into the fridge on Christmas Eve, and we found him straddling a 75-pound turkey. 75 pounds cash, not weight. But he'd worked out how to get into the fridge on Christmas Eve and start on the turkey. So he's a doer. He's a practical cat, is Alfie. And he loves the sun. The other thing is he's a sun worshipper, which isn't great when you've got a big pink nose like that. If it's hot, Alfie lays out in the sun. He loves nothing more than a hot, cloudless day. And on those 40-degree days that we had last year in Britain, those very, very hot days, Alfie was just sitting out in the sun. He really doesn't like moving out of the sunshine. We move him out so that he doesn't burn, but he could lay in that sun all day long. So those boys are my two inspirations. And I actually had, before I wrote this book a long time ago, I actually had the poem turned into 2 tattoos, which I have on my forearms. The Cat of the Day is on my right arm, and the Cat of the Night is on the left arm. Now, that's kind of coincidental. I had them put on that side because when I used to sleep on a bed, that's the side they slept on. So Alfie slept on the right-hand side and Marlowe slept on the left, always. They seem to default to that. However, it's also kind of meaningful. It kind of gained an additional meaning the more I thought about it, which is the right hand in magic. The right hand is the hand of the apparent world, of this world, of things known, if you like, of conscious thought. And that's very much where Alfie and the idea of the Cat of the Day and the sun sits on that right hand side. And then, of course, the left hand, which is the hand of mystery, the kind of the unknown mystical side, is there with the nighttime on it, associated with stars and the moon. So actually, although it was kind of coincidental that they went on those arms, kind of magically, it works. It you know, the idea of the unseen, the mystical, the night, the moon on the left-hand side fits very, very well with that tattoo that I've got there, and of the Cat of the Night and of the Cat of the Day. So that's kind of, those are tattoos I had done a while ago. But when I started to write this book, I'd met a very wonderful artist who a lot of you will know, and her name's Hannah Willow. And her work is wonderful. I actually met her through writing the Artio and Artist book, where I interviewed her about one of her drawings. And she said to me at that point, she said, if you ever do another book, I'd love to do you a cover. Now, Hannah loves cats. She has she had a wonderful cat called Georgie, who kind of looked just like Marlowe. And so when I said to her, oh, would you mind illustrating the magic of cats? She jumped at it, and I was thrilled because she's one of my favorite artists. And so Hannah, it reinterpreted the Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day as that painting, as the painting that ended up on the front cover of the book. And it's just wonderful. She's captured the cats and the landscape. It's the most beautiful picture. And of course, the joy of this picture is that you can do this and turn it upside down. So I really want to use this on my altar to mark the light half and the dark half of the year, turning it up to the dark half like this in the autumn equinox, and then turning it back round again in the spring equinox for the Cat of the Day. I just love Hannah's work. And a few weeks after she'd done these, she said to me, would you mind if I used this painting for something else other than the cover of your book? And I was like, no, not at all. And what Hannah did, she's published this book called The Folk Tales Oracle, and the Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day appear in her folktale oracle as balance. And she's written this lovely little bit about Marlowe and Alfie there. When you look into the oracle booklet about the cats, she's written a lovely bit about Marlowe and Alfie, so that their fame is expanding and growing. This is what I love. This is when I said I was going to mythologize my cats. This is what I meant. And there we go. There's the front cover again, just to remind you that this is out on the 28th of April. And I hope you like it. I loved writing it. It was a real gift and a real labor of love for me, this one. So Hannah did the front cover, but she also did a few pictures to go inside. She's done 9 illustrations in total. I'm not going to show you all of them because I don't want to ruin the surprise, but I am going to show you a couple of the Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day. So first of all, here's a picture of the Cat of the Night as it appears at the beginning of the book, picking up on that idea of landscape again that Hannah puts on the front of the book. Here we have a landscape asleep under the moon and the stars. And to go with that, Hannah's, of course, done a Cat of the Day. And you can see that landscape there mirrored backwards and forwards. The other thing I just want you to look at, which is lovely, is the little tails. Can you see the lovely little tails that she's got going on there? Also, for some reason, she's managed to capture Marlowe and Alfie just by their outline. I don't know why, but their tails are really cute, because when you get to the poem at the end of the book, Isn't that lovely? Their tails form this little heart at the bottom. And like I say, this is astonishing because Hannah's actually managed to capture the shape of the cats. It looks like Marlowe and Alfie. Marlowe's a bit podgy, so he's got a nice round booty there. But that's actually based on a picture of them hunting together. They weren't actually hunting. They were behind a glass window looking out at a bird in the garden. But they were kind of working on that plan together of how they were going to get that bird. They never did. But it's one of the few times that they worked together. But yes, so there we go. So I'm going to stop sharing and kind of come out of my presentation so I can see again. There we are. So those are the images and the pictures from The Magic of Cats by the very wonderful Hannah Willow. I hope you like them as much as I did. I was thrilled when Hannah showed me those. And there's 6 more that you haven't seen. 3 more Cats of the Night and 3 more Cats of the Day, which you can see when the book comes out on the 28th of April. So taking that framework of the Cat of the Night and the Cat of the Day, I decided that I would use that as the framework for my book. So the first half is about the Cat of the Night and the second half is about the Cat of the Day. So I began my research by seeing if I could find any links between cats and nighttime or daytime, or particularly because of the poem, the moon and the sun. And I suppose the easiest connection that we can make there, the one that is perhaps most well known, is the connection between the cat and the moon. Throughout human history, well, for at least 2 millennia, cats have been connected to the moon in terms of magic, in terms of their energy, and in terms of the kind of the vibration that they give, I suppose, that they're deemed to be animals of the night and animals of the moon. And this is, a lot of people say, this is because of the cat's eye, because the cat's eye, obviously, as you know, can be very, very, the pupil expands, so it kind of almost takes up the entire front part of that eye if it's dark. And on a time when there's a lot of light around, the pupil will slim right the way down to the thinnest slit of a pupil. And so people have linked that to the phases of the moon. So in much the same way that the moon waxes and wanes, comes up to full and wanes again, people have seen that pattern in the eye of a cat, and so that they have associated the cat with the moon. So I'm just going to read a quick quotation from you because I quote it in my book. There's a great author called Fred Gettings who wrote a wonderful book called The Secret Lore of Cats in 1989, and he just kind of explains this perfectly. He says, "The cat thrives in the darkness, for it is an occult creature, happier in the reflected light of the moon than the bright glare of the sun's rays. The sun in the sky is too steady for the everlasting cat, for her strange eyes are designed to fluctuate from full to slit in imitation of the lesser luminary, the moon. The cat is a symbol of the night, of lunar darkness, and of the moon's phases." And I quote Gettings at that point because it's just, he puts that so beautifully, that very strong connection between the cat and the moon, the cat's eye, and the phases of the moon. Now, as I said, that connection has been there for at least 2 millennia because you can find it as far back in the writings of Pliny, the Roman author, Pliny the Elder. He actually wrote that he connected cats to the moon in a slightly different way, rather than just through that eye. He said that female cats would have, over their life, could have up to 28 kittens, because that is the amount of time in the lunar cycle. So he ties the lunar cycle into the fertility of the cat. Now we know that cats can have far more than 28 kittens, but that was what Pliny said. We can see that coming back again. We can see that idea of the cat and the moon coming back again, even in works like Alice in Wonderland, where the Cheshire cat seems to disappear. Its body disappears first, so you're left with just the cat's head, which is like the full moon. And then slowly the cat's head disappears and you're left with the smile, which is like the crescent of the moon just before it goes fully dark. So, we even see that connection between the cat and the moon there. But the best place that we find the connection between the cat and the moon is in the poetry of W.B. Yeats. Like I said, here comes the English teacher. I'm going to read from a book of Yeats, and I'm going to read his poem, The Cat and the Moon, because it's just a joyous, joyous piece of poetry. If you are into Celtic mythology at all, Celtic religion, you need to get to know the work of Yeats. I don't need to labour that point anymore, I think, but just look at his mystical stuff. It's beautiful. So I'm just going to read for you very quickly, The Cat and the Moon. The cat went here and there, and the moon spun round like a top, and the nearest kin of the moon, the creeping cat, looked up. Black Minaloosh stared at the moon, for wander and wail as he would, the pure cold light of the sky troubled his animal blood. Minaloosh runs in the grass, lifting his delicate feet. Do you dance, Minaloosh? Do you dance? When two close kindred meet, what better than call a dance? Maybe the moon may learn. Maybe the moon may learn, tired of that courtly fashion, a new dance turn. Minaloosh creeps through the grass from moonlit place to place. The sacred moon overhead has taken a new phase. Does Minaloosh know that his pupils will pass from change to change, and that from round to crescent, from crescent to round they range? Minaloosh creeps through the grass, alone, important and wise, and lifts to the changing moon his changing eyes. So there again, we've got a number of really, really interesting connections between the cat and the moon here. Yeats calls the cat and the moon the closest kin of the moon. So it's not just, it's like a family relationship that Yeats gives them in this poem. They are actually related. However, you'll notice that the moon, the effect of the moon, troubles his animal blood. I think that's really interesting, that the moon troubles the cat. It's not an easy relationship between the cat and the moon. However, the other interesting thing that Yeats does is he shows it's a two-way relationship between the cat and the moon. So the moon doesn't just affect the cat. It may make it feel nervous, but there's that wonderful bit where maybe the moon may learn, tired of that courtly fashion, a new dance turn. So it's like the cat is affecting and influencing the moon back. Now, Yeats may be being ironic there because, cats can't really affect the moon, but I think he's talking about the power of that relationship between the cat and between the moon, and the cat's role in that it's not just a passive receptor for the moon, but it's a two-way relationship. And that whole last quarter of that poem goes back again to the eyes. Does he know that his eyes will range from crescent to round, from crescent to round? And that last bit, he lifts to the changing moon his changing eyes. So it is through the eye that we really see that association between the cat and the moon. So to kind of sum up, even if we look back kind of a couple of millennia, probably even a little bit longer than that, we will see this image of the cat connected to the moon of being a very magical creature, as Yeats just shows us there. That connection to the moon is a magical connection, somewhat in the darkness, kind of at one with the darkness and at one with that reflected gentle light of the moon. So when I've written the book, The Magic of Cats, I've developed that cat of the night away from just being a cat which represents darkness. I've tried to pick up all of those threads, and I've subdivided the cat of the night into three parts. So the cat of the night is the universal cat. So that's the cat of myth and legend. You'll find that some creation myths involve cats. There's a very wonderful one, a Chinese myth about how the gods left the cats to look after the earth and the cats couldn't be bothered, which just sums up cats perfectly. So in that chapter on the universal cat of the night, you'll find those. The witch's cat, that association, if we're associating cats with the moon, with that kind of dark energy, with the darkness, and the moon energy, that magical energy, as we know in the medieval period, that went very badly wrong for cats, and that association became very dangerous to them. So my second chapter looks at the witch's cat, and the third chapter is about the knowing cat. That's the cat who seems to as I said about Marlowe, seems to see through you. There are reports of cats predicting things. Sometimes you could look at, the cat predicting. Some people say that cats can predict earthquakes. Well, a lot of animals can, but there are reports of cats seeming to predict bombing in the Second World War. You'll have to read the book to find out more. But that's how I sum up the cat of the night as those three things: the universal cat, the witch's cat, and the knowing cat. Tesco's man has just arrived, by the way. So apologies if it gets a little bit clunky now, but hopefully it will all be fine. So I hopefully have just painted a picture for you of the cat of the night and the cat's close connection to the moon. However, when I got cats of my own, they really challenged that stereotype of the magical witch's cat. Marlowe a little bit, Alfie more so. As I've said, Alfie likes lying out in the sun, and he's very much a doer. He's not a magical otherworldly cat. Alfie's a doer, a practical cat in this world. And of course, possibly because both of my cats are boys, there's a lot of masculine energy around the pair of them, rather than this kind of feminine energy which we find in the traditional cat of the night. But there was another cat that I met who kind of showed me that there was a different cat out there, very different to the cat of the night and the mystical magical cat. And he was called Angus. And I met Angus before we had either Marlowe or Alfie. In fact, he was the reason we got Marlowe or Alfie. As I said, I used to live in the middle of Stratford-on-Avon, in amongst all the shops and all the tourist attractions. And Angus did have an owner, but Angus didn't really go back to that owner. He kind of wandered across a very busy road and would walk up and down amongst the tourists and get given lovely treats. And he'd go into all the shops and all the restaurants would feed him. And he used to spend days laying on our sofa. And one time he even spent a night sleeping on the bottom of my bed. He just didn't want to go. And Angus was this kind of very worldly cat. He knew how to get a meal out of anybody. I mean, we all know cats like this, don't we? But Angus was like a wide boy. He was like he'd kind of strut down the street. He completely owned it. He owned all the shops. He owned all of the food in all of the shops. And he owned all of us. He was very much about this world, the apparent world, making a success in the world around him. He was a cat of the day. He was a cat of the sun, if that makes sense. There wasn't anything magical about what he was doing. It was kind of very open that we were being manipulated, frankly, and he knew how to work the system. And so thinking about this different kind of cat that I had experienced, I looked to see whether I could find any other examples or whether I could actually connect the cat to the sun in any way. And I did manage to. And what I found is that the association between the cat and the sun goes back perhaps even further than the association between the cat and the moon and the cat and the nighttime. So while I'm going to read you a little bit of the magic of cats here. While we tend to associate cats with the moon, they've also been strong. They also have strong connections to solar energy and sun gods. The most notable of these solar connections is the Egyptian sun god Ra, who appeared in the form of the great cat Mao. Remember that word. He appeared in the form of the great cat Mao to protect the tree of life. The cat-bodied Great Sphinx of Giza faces east towards the rising sun and was believed to guard this world against the other world, which arrived with the darkness of night. So the Egyptians had really strong connections between cats and the sun. And the cat also brings in solar energy through its association with the star sign Leo, whose ruling planet is the sun. So there are, although kind of in popular culture, we very freely associate the cat with the moon and the nighttime, there are actually a lot of connections between the cat and the sun. And it got me thinking that actually, think about the cat's eye. We've talked about that a lot, about how people have said, oh, it moves. It's like the moon. It kind of goes full and then contracts, full and contracts, just like the phases of the moon, which is true. But what is the cat's eye reacting to? Well, the cat's eye is reacting to the light of the sun. So when it's dark, when there is no light of the sun, the cat's eye is massive and it can still see very well, but its pupil swells to let more light in. And when cats go out into the sun, into the bright sun, they have a tiny sliver of a pupil through their iris. And if you look at a golden-eyed cat, it's because their pupil goes so thin, it's like you see the sun in their eyeball, just in there. So, you know, there is this massive connection, quite old, not something that we've had necessarily seen recently, but a very ancient connection between the cat and the sun. So I decided to dig a little bit more and look a little bit into kind of the meaning of the sun. So I've got the wonderful The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest here. Just read a little bit here about what it says about the sun and the meaning of the sun. The sun's meaning, he says, simple. It means life. Instinctively, we know that. No scientific arguments are necessary. That is the truth, so obvious that we feel it, the sun connected to life. The life-giving sun is the center of the solar system. Everything orbits around it. The gravity produced by its enormous mass holds the planet in their tracks. And he says, but the sun is what enables us to act. And I reflected back on those cats that I knew, like Angus and Alfie, the cat who doesn't like me going off and doing ritual work, who doesn't like me playing on my phone, will stand in front of me and meow. Both of those two cats get us to act in the real world, in this world. And then I kind of thought again, do we see that anywhere else? Well, yes, we do. We see it in our stories. One of the most well-known stories about a cat is Puss in Boots. And Puss in Boots is not of the other world. He's not magical. What Puss in Boots does for his owner is he gets him to be hugely successful in the apparent world through cheating, and manipulation, but he gets his human success, real world success. And there's Dick Whittington's cat as well. Love a panto. But yes, Dick Whittington's cat does the same thing. Because of the cat, Dick Whittington becomes successful. He becomes Lord Mayor of London in the apparent world because of the influence of his cat and what the cat does. In that case, it's just eating rats, which is something that cats do all the time. And actually, there are plenty of these cats in our culture who are doing cats. They tend to sit in our language as well. So particularly more modern ways that we talk and that we use cats in our language tend to be very positive and very practical. So if you think about in the 60s, you know, those cool cats of the 60s, why were they cool cats? Well, because they knew how to get things done. And so that's how cats operate in our language. That's how some cats operate in the real world. They get things done. And so that's how I've divided up the cat of the day in my book. There are three bits: the idiomatic cat, which is the cat of storytelling and the cat of language, and also the physical cat. So just the cat as a physical specimen itself, simply amazing. And the evolving cat is the third part of that book, because cats have evolved a fair way since Egypt, and yeah, they do some pretty amazing things. I'm just going to take a slight detour. I'm aware of time. We've only got about 5 minutes or so left. We'll take a little detour back to that word that I told you to remember, the Egyptian word who Ra turned into. And he actually turned into Mao. And Mao is the Egyptian word for cat. It's also the Egyptian word for light, which is a lovely connection between the two. Again, reinforces that connection between the cat and the sun. And I used to be an English teacher, as I mentioned, and I love just sitting down and thinking about how words came into being. And I kind of got stuck a bit, and it's nothing I can ever prove. It's completely spurious. But why did the Egyptians call a cat Mao? Well, I have a theory. It's only a theory, will never be proved. But maybe the Egyptians called the cat Mao because that's the noise that the cat made at them. So when somebody comes along and goes, "Oh, what's that thing?" They go, "Oh, Mao, it's a Mao." I will never be able to prove that, but I like to think that the Egyptians named the cat after the sound they make. Interestingly, that's another part of the book, that cats only meow at humans. They don't really meow at each other after they've gone through kittenhood. So if they were meowing at the Egyptians, it's something they were doing because the Egyptians were not responding to them as they should do with their other forms of communication. The other reason I love the Egyptians is because we still have the oldest recorded name of a cat, like a pet name, is from Egypt. And the oldest recorded name of a cat is Nejem. And it means sweetie, which is lovely, isn't it? Because it just shows that the Egyptians love their cats as much as we do. So just to sum up in the last few minutes, and then I'll ask if there's any questions. I'll happily take some questions. So over the last 2 millennia, we've predominantly had this view of cats as connected to the moon. We see it in Pliny. We see it working through getting the cats into trouble in the witch trials. And it's almost become a bit of a stereotype. The witch's cat sitting by the cauldron on the edge of the broom with the moon the moonlight kind of flooding down on them. But what we're starting to see now is a different kind of cat come through. We're seeing a cat that is more social, perhaps, than maybe one that we have seen before, that is more practical rather than magical. Magical may be in a different way to what we expect. And it's almost like we're in the first rays of morning of that new cat, the cat of the day, that new sun. But it's not new. This idea of the cat and the sun being connected is a very old one. And it's almost like we've had a cycle of a day and a night. So way back in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, cats were associated with the sun. Then they've become associated with the night. And now, maybe, I hope, they will become associated with the day again. And the one doesn't negate necessarily the other. So just because we have a cat of the day doesn't mean that our standard view of the cat, our magical view of the cat of the night, has to disappear. They're completely complementary. They work together. They're just two sides of the same coin. So I'm not dismissing the cat of the night at all. I just want us to be like the earth in my poem, and I want us to embrace both the cat of the night and the cat of the day. So there we go. That's it from me. That's what I've wanted to say to you, and hopefully got you interested in the book. Have we got any questions? I'll be quite happy to take some questions if there are any. Is the poem in the book? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's right at the back. It's appendix number 1 at the back of the book. I didn't really feel it was fair to talk about the cat of the night and the cat of the day and not put the poem in there. But yes, it's in there. Yes, absolutely. Cat of the Night is also one of yes, absolutely. They're happy in the darkness, but it's also, but they're also unseen. Absolutely. It's what I wanted to do was just move past the idea of the cat as being a single cat of the night. I kind of felt they were perhaps a bit more rounded than that, that actually we needed to acknowledge the cat who stood in front of us in the room, as well as the magical being. And it's exactly what I've just said, which is I'm not dismissing that cat of the night at all. Cats definitely have those qualities. And I was actually, one of the things I wanted to do today is I wanted you all to post pictures of your cats, but we couldn't manage it with the technology. But I'm sure as magical practitioners, some of you definitely have cats of the night. You have your magical cats who work with the light of the moon and can stand in both worlds. I just kind of wanted to flag this other cat to you. Both of them are equal and valid, I think. But thank you for that. It's great. Can we get an autograph book? I don't know. I'll be completely honest. I don't know. I'll have to ask Trevor that, who's our wonderful editor. I'll have to ask Trevor about that. But hopefully Trevor's watching, so hopefully Trevor has seen that question and can help me answer it. So there we go. Fabulous. Thank you. Cats, they do. Yes, absolutely. Cats and sounds. Thank you very much, Willow Moon. Yes, I didn't talk about this, but I do mention it in the book. We don't believe that cats naturally hissed. We think that they learnt that from snakes. And so that forms part of my book, my section about the evolving cat. So they hiss which they don't naturally do. We think that's learned behavior from snakes. They don't naturally meow at each other past the age of kittenhood, but they've learned to do that now to humans. Well, they learned to do that a while ago with humans. Humans don't pick up on the eye communication and the tail communication. So cats communicate with us verbally. And there's also evidence now that if a cat wants something, it's actually got two different types of purr. So it's got a purr when it's happy and is just generally having a lovely time. And that can also be used as a healing purr. But they've also got a purr when they want their human to do something. And that it's a different frequency. And it's the frequency of a crying child. Because cats have worked out that if they can purr at that frequency, it spurs the human into natural action for them. So in much the same way, when we hear a crying child, we will go and help it. Cats have learned that if they purr at a certain pitch, we will go and feed them. They are completely magical creatures, just in terms of their evolution and their biology, what they do and the way that they learn and the way that they can adapt to us is phenomenal. They are phenomenal creatures, utterly magical and utterly wonderful. Yes. Any more questions? Oh, here we go. This has been a great talk. Thank you very much. So I'll just round off now. I hope you've enjoyed it. See, Tesco's delivery happened and you barely heard a thing, hopefully. I'm now going to go and unpack cat food and get the cat litter out. Magic of Cats is available on the 28th of April, and I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for your time over the last 45 minutes.